See. All right. There we go again. We are back live for number 4, episode 444. Dad's taking his sweet time waddling over to his chair real quick. And then we are going to get started. Let me share this on our good old Facebook.
I have to do all the engineering over here. All right. And I turned my volume down. So it won't.
Yeah, it doesn't do it like last time and the time before that and the time before that. All right.
He always is making fun of my fact that I forget to turn my...
Your technological difficulties, we should say. Well, you didn't turn it down, I guess.
Well, that's my ringer. But I actually have my volume down on this.
Yeah, because when you turn it on, I can hear myself every week.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right.
About ready?
Ready to go.
All
right. Welcome to the Best Boys Center Ice Podcast, episode number 4 of the new season. I'm Barry Besse. Along with me is my handsome and smart son, Carson Besse. He's been a hockey fan for
ever. Well, not ever, but probably ever close to.
And we've done this podcast. Last year was a half season. This is our first full season. We got a lot to talk about tonight, especially the Western Canadian road trip that Carson was on. Unfortunately, didn't come out as well as you'd want it to be, following the Pittsburgh Penguins, but we'll get into that. But first, want to thank the I Am Refocused Radio Network and Shemaya Reed. We're on the I Am Refocused Radio Network, our podcast. You can see it there through our YouTube channel. And we also like to give a shout out to our good buddy
Rudy Campos
Jr. and Sweep the League. Rudy does a great job covering everything else, NCAA, NFL, and then of course the NBA with the Spurs, and we do the hockey part. So a shout out to Rudy and Shemaya and everybody, and you can get us on Spreaker as well. The podcasts are available here on Facebook Live and Facebook shortly after we're done, but it's also on the YouTube and the other networks here. Not long the next day, but we want to start, and I do want to start with your trip because I want to give you as much time as possible to talk about this trip that started last Saturday, a week ago this past Saturday, with our trip to Dallas for the Oilers and Stars. And then you went on an incredible, it was an incredible run. I think we figured it out. It was almost 70, it was 500.
No, it was pretty close to 8,000 miles.
Was it pretty close to that? 8,000 miles?
Pretty close to 8,000.
Okay. Well, let's get started. And we'll do the Oilers stuff afterwards, but let's get going with that.
What a trip. What a time that was.
Now, this is something you've wanted to do for a long time.
I didn't plan on that ever happening, but it worked out. Like we had mentioned on the last, 2 weeks ago now, we did our last really formal episode. That I was gone for about a week and followed the Western Canadian road trip. So I went to the games in Winnipeg for the Penguins, and then in Calgary, Edmonton, and Vancouver, which was just unbelievable to get to even do that in the first place. You're going from place to place, and arena to arena, it's a bit different, seeing different cities, and then along the way got to visit with family too, which was nice. Got to see your brother and his wife and then their kids, and my aunt and my uncle and their kids, and then saw my grandmother after Winnipeg for a couple days for my mom's side. So it was nice to get to see family and go to the games. And just to get to explore a new place. I never traveled on my own before. New experience trying to do something like that. But
a couple of hiccups, but
a couple of hiccups, but we figured it out and we got it fixed along the way. Like we had mentioned, unfortunately, the games didn't go as planned at all. They didn't win any of them, but
we got a point in Calgary.
Yeah, we got a point in Calgary, but I mean, that part of it was a bummer for sure. And I'll get into that here in a second, I guess, about the games, because I'll do our recap since it's been a couple weeks since we did our show. But yeah, the trip itself was great, and getting to see different cities and the different crowds and just everything to see that you could. It was pretty cool. It was definitely cool. But we'll kind of get into the game specific stuff because it's been a bit since we've been on. Since we did our last episode, they played 6 games, and it's been not very pleasant to say the least. 1-4-1, 1-4-1 in the last 6. So we beat Buffalo the day after on the Wednesday, and then that was a back and forth crazy game. The 6-5 overtime. Gino got his 500th goal in that game, which was cool. I was waiting for that to happen, North, but didn't end up happening like that. And then Sid got a 1600th point in that game as well, in the overtime winner, which was cool. That was a great game. And then we went and played Carolina on Friday at home, and that was a dud of a game. They scored first. The common theme I'll mention all these games, basically they had the lead in about every one of these games and didn't make a difference. But
Miles Jacoby, shout out. Miles is watching us.
Hello, Miles. One of your friends or what? I don't know.
One of Uncle Mike's friends.
Okay, cool. Mr. Jacoby. Anyways, the Carolina game was a dud. I had mentioned to you, I think when we were driving to Dallas, that I feel like that's who we match up the worst against, because they just, as soon as you touch, I don't know if you noticed that when y'all played them too, because y'all just played them last week. As soon as you touch the dang puck, they're like on you. You can't even move.
Oh yeah,
so it's impossible to get anything going. And we scored the first goal, and then it didn't matter. They wiped it from there, and it was a horrible game. But optimism was heading into the Western Canadian trip, and unfortunately, it didn't go very well. 0-3-1 on the Western trip. They started out in Winnipeg and grabbed a 2-0 lead in Winnipeg, and they blew it. In the second, for sure, defensive collapses over and over, and tied the game in the third, and then Winnipeg just took it over. And goaltending wasn't even a problem. Well, could be a problem, you could say, but there was no help really given in front. That didn't really help out at all. But it was still, actually, I thought we outplayed Winnipeg. I mean, you watched a little bit of that game. We really did. We outshot them. Yeah. We outshot them like 41-34, and just didn't work out that game. But I was like, okay, we're fine. We're going to Calgary. Calgary's playing out of their minds we're at the moment playing out of their butts. Like, we'll beat Calgary. We didn't beat Calgary. Calgary won and a penalty shootout. So that was cool to get to see a shootout. But another game, we had leads multiple times, and Calgary scored with 40 seconds left.
Oh yeah, that hurt.
I knew it was coming, because we had the fourth line out there as icing. And it's like, okay, something's gonna happen. And sure enough, it was a jam in the front, a shot from the front of the defense or back of the offensive zone. I think it hit one of our defensemen in front and literally got stuck in his jersey and plopped on the ground, and Kadri scored right off it. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I'm like, okay. And then we went to overtime. It was actually pretty not very eventful overtime, and nothing happened. And in penalties, they wanted to shoot out. I was like, okay, well, you got a point. Points better than no points. And we played our worst game. Unfortunately, the worst game of the trip, the next game against you guys in Edmonton. That was a great game from y'all. We played horrible. I mean, after halfway through the game, the shots were 32-5. It was ridiculous. The only reason we were in the game because of the goalie. Yeah, Blomqvist, he was out of his mind.
That first half of the game, he was stood on his head.
Yeah, and then you guys just took it over in the second. Leon scored, and then from there it was just unfortunate, to say the least. And I thought we had that. Well, I don't know if you're watching the game. They got it. They took the goal away from us because they had blown the whistle, and Stu's caught it and he dropped it, and they blew the whistle and he scored. Yeah. I was like, oh shoot. But yeah, they lost 4-0 in Edmonton, and then finally Vancouver. Probably the most infuriating game of them all, because we got beat 4-3 again.
But you had a 2-0 lead.
Yes, and Vancouver scored 3 goals in 1 minute in the second period.
Yeah.
When you're in number one in an opposing arena, it's not fun when you get scored on. But then when they're announcing the goal and the next one goes, and it was just, you could tell once the first one happened, something's going to happen. That first one, again, Vancouver was outplaying us, I felt like, and we were up 2-0. Like, okay, cool, we're going to win. We're going to have a good game. And then the first goal Vancouver got was because of a defensive mistake. I think it was Miller behind the net, collapsed 3 of our guys to him, and he had Patterson open by the face-off dot, and he, boom, goal. Okay, cool. 2-1. That's fine. You give up a goal. It's expecting us to give up a goal. We did. Move on. And then it was a pinch up in the offensive zone, I think, by Eller, and 2-on-1, like 20 seconds later, and they scored again. I'm like, oh, great. Okay, it's like it's 0-0. It's 2-2. Cool.
Mhm.
And then they got a break, and they gave up a breakaway. And that's one you could probably say was Ned's fault because he didn't catch it. He bobbled it, dropped it, but the defense in front didn't clear it away, and he got another chance at it, and he scored. And I'm like, okay, awesome.
Great.
Beautiful,
Minute,
just beautiful. Yeah, and then they got another one, and we clawed back in the third. Gino got another goal, which was actually a really pretty goal. He deked him out, and he went backhand. It was perfect, but didn't matter. Unfortunately, it wasn't in the cards for a win this time, but this week's a bit of a, we would call it easier schedule. They need to win these games because they're 3-6-1. They play against Minnesota right now in Fleury's last game in Pittsburgh, which will be cool. They play right now against the Wild, and then they play Thursday against Anaheim at home, which is another team we hopefully should beat. And then Saturday at Hockey Night against the Canadiens on Saturday. So, yeah, the trip was fun. I'd have liked.
What did you think about? Because we always talk about the fans in Dallas. What did you think about the fans in the 4 Canadian cities?
I will say, out of all of them, I think the ones that were the best and the loudest were Vancouver.
Really?
Vancouver. It was like they're all over you, and it's like, like it just makes you frustrated. You're like, I can't. Like, you just want to like shove it in their face.
Yeah.
And the vantage point in there was amazing. All my vantage points were really great. Honestly, I think out of all of them, the one I would say that I was most intrigued by was definitely Calgary, because of just how old it is in there.
Mm-hmm.
The Saddledome is old.
It is old. Mid-80s.
That's one you haven't seen before, but that concourse structure is so weird. It's all concrete. They have old school advertisements that are hanging on the ceilings in there. It's crazy how old it is in there and cool. But yeah, all the arena atmospheres were great. You can definitely tell the difference between it in Canada versus America. It's their sport. And a lot of those cities, that's all they really have are their hockey teams.
Yeah.
They have the CFL, but it's not as big as not
the only cities that have another sports franchise is Toronto.
Yeah.
They have an NBA and Major League Baseball, but that's it.
Yeah.
Everything else is the other Canadian cities have the Canadian Football League and just about every other city, but that's it. In Edmonton, it's it's like Edmonton's like Green Bay. Yeah. It's like it's a small market.
Yeah. And unfortunately, there I had to get it from Uncle Keith every time the Oilers scored. They'd score and they'd stand up and they'd cheer, and then he'd come down and he'd tap me on my shoulder. I'm like, whatever.
There was a picture of him and his Uncle Keith where Uncle Keith is hiding the penguin. It's like, it was all in fun, and
it was a great time.
Everybody loves seeing you.
And an unforgettable trip, and definitely another reason to go back to more games. I'm thinking possibly, just because of the way my schedule is written, for next month, I might go to the game when we play in Utah against, well, not in Utah, but in Pittsburgh against Utah, because it's on a Saturday. I might try to squeeze that one in because it's an afternoon game. But yeah, definitely gives me more reason to go to games, because I want to see a win. The last 8 games I've seen them play, they've only won one game. One. I need to see something turn around a little bit. But just to get to watch him play, despite the fact Sid didn't play very good, he had a point at least in there. Gino played good. He had a lot of points. He had a 3-point game against Vancouver as well, which was actually kind of neat. But looking for a turnaround here. It's early in the season, so hopefully we can.
It's still there's no time.
I've already explained to you what what I think needs to happen, but we'll get into that here in a little bit.
So I'm glad you're home, and I'm glad you got to experience that. I've never even been to the arenas that you were in Canada. I've been to the old Northlands Coliseum, Rexall Place in Edmonton.
Yeah.
I never went to the Saddledome. I never been to the old arenas in Winnipeg and Vancouver.
Cool.
It'd be nice if you can figure out an Eastern Canadian one in Ottawa, Toronto, and Montreal.
Montreal would be
but that's a little different. You don't do those back to back like you would the Western
play at home
Canadian.
And then go there.
So the Penguins got some work to do, but that's a team that can get it done. Like it proved last year.
Yeah,
this was a team that started off terrible, didn't play right, and then
we had that 2% chance in March,
and you were right there until game 81.
Yeah.
Now, the last time we talked officially with the podcast, the Oilers had just gone through their 0-3.
Yep.
And since then they've gone 4-2-1, and they've started to gel a
Your
little
cheat
bit.
sheet? Are you kidding me?
You come on. I'm not smart like you. I have to have things in front of me or else I'm not. So okay. So they beat Philly the day after our podcast, 4-3 in overtime. They went to Nashville, beat Nashville 4-2. Then the game that we went to in Dallas, they lost 4-1, and then lost to Carolina, I should say, in overtime, 3-2.
Yep.
And then win a couple. The Pittsburgh game.
No, we
already talked about the Pittsburgh game, and then Detroit in overtime, and then last night,
that was bad.
Was a hard one in Columbus. For a couple of reasons, the Oilers lost 6-1, but 37 seconds into the game, they lost the captain on what was a missed tripping call, literally 37 seconds into the game. And he tweaked his ankle, and he was out for the rest of the game, which I really think they got into the guys' heads that their best player is out. The best player in the world is out, your captain, and I think then the Oilers just got manhandled by Columbus, and they've had a hard time in Columbus. They've lost.
They did that to Colorado too at the beginning. They've done that to some teams where they've just beaten them.
The Oilers haven't beaten Columbus in the last 8 games. In Columbus,
8 years has been
8 years since they've won in Columbus.
That's
now
crazy.
They've beaten the Blue Jackets,
but
not in Columbus. So that's, you talk about teams that have a bugaboo. The Oilers, Columbus, in Columbus. So what I'm hearing, and I looked as recently as just before the podcast, McDavid is he's going to miss the game in Nashville because he flew back to Edmonton after last night's game. So he's going to miss Thursday in Nashville. Then they play Sunday in Calgary. They're thinking
he could be back.
He'll be back for the Calgary game.
You got 5 days yet. So
So in the meantime, they've recalled Noah Phillips and Drake Caggiula, who came up.
You guys have him again?
Yeah. So he's been an Oiler before. So they're bringing those guys up. They brought him up from Bakersfield. I'm sure they're thinking maybe Philip will be in the lineup tomorrow against Thursday against Nashville. Well, we'll see. So we'll see if the Oilers need to bounce back from that Columbus game.
We also had a lot of. 3 games in 4 nights is a lot of games.
Yeah. So now you got a game Thursday, then you got a game until Sunday, and then you got a back-to-back on Monday as well. So the power play is horrific.
Is it?
They've only got 4 goals. They're at 13%. They are at the bottom of the league.
They're last.
I think they're not quite last, but they're right there.
We were.
They're right there. And the penalty kill is also one of the worst in the bottom parts. So that's 2 things that the Oilers really relied on in their Stanley Cup run last year was the power. It was a historic power play the last 2 years and the penalty kill. But so I'm really thinking that they need to. There was talk of, and I talked about this on some of the stuff I did over the last week, that the Oilers were thinking about changing up the lines, the power play lines. I think they need to do that. I think they need to do something else. They got no consistency. They'll get a goal here and then they'll be like 4 or 5
games without one.
And then, so.
Well, I think too, I've noticed even in Edmonton that it's mainly McDavid not shooting.
Yeah.
He just holds it. He just holds it. So it's like
his mindset.
You shut the option down for him.
Since the 64 goal season a couple of years ago, his mindset has just been passing. He's got to start shooting the puck. Well, and anybody, you got to just shoot the puck more and forget all the passing that happens on that power play. Shoot the puck. You got Bouchard. You can get Hyman's always in front of the net. If you switch things up, you put Corey Perry out there. Corey Perry is a pain around the net.
Yeah, he is.
So you could put him in there. So
I found it crazy too with Hyman. He didn't get his first point until the Pittsburgh game.
Yeah, and he still hasn't got a goal, but he's shooting. He had in the
Detroit game.
The Detroit game, 11 shots on goal.
7.
Yeah.
So they had. Yeah.
So they were getting shots on net, but Hyman just hasn't gotten it. I said Hyman is goalless. Oilers' scoring is of course down. They're like at the bottom of the league as far as goals for. Now the goaltending and the D is still a concern. Not a concern enough to go out and say panic.
No.
Evan Bouchard has to start playing better defense.
Yes, he does.
He's got Matthias Ekholm out there. He just is making so many
Mistakes.
mental errors.
Yes, he is on the defensive
side of it.
Even offensively, he's he fans a lot more on shots, and
he doesn't take shots when he should.
Right,
but he is
that's his biggest weapon.
The game against Columbus last night, he made some bobbles that is just like want to just go.
Well, that's his biggest weapon is his shot. Yeah, and he doesn't take advantage of it half the time.
So that's what I think. And I don't think it's a panic situation. Stu had a bad night.
You're 10 games into the year.
When I looked at the standings in the Pacific, they're still only 3 points out of like second place in the Pacific.
Yeah.
So there's nothing.
There's no panic.
No panic. There's no panic in Pittsburgh either. Like,
really,
you got to start getting some wins together.
I beg to differ, honestly, on that one. I think, in the Vancouver game, every other shift they were switching.
Oh,
their line rotations.
That's crazy.
Like you can't put anything together. I mean, I think literally, like I texted you at that game. Sid had like 6 or 7 different wingers during that game. He had probably everybody he could. He had OC, he had Beauvillier, he had Malkin on one, he had Rusty. He got hurt in that game too. I'll mention that. Raquel. I think he had Puljujärvi. So there were like 6 different people with him during one game, and that's. Yeah, this is too much, but I've already expressed my opinions what they need to do, but I don't think that's going to really happen.
And then before we get on to the NHL notes coming up for the Oilers, as we mentioned, in Nashville on Thursday, in Calgary, again, Battle of Alberta round 2 on Sunday, home at Monday to New Jersey, and then a big one next Wednesday, a week from tomorrow, at home against the Vegas Golden Knights.
That's going to be
the Vegas Golden Knights, of course, leading the Pacific Division right now, playing really, really well. I'm going to be going to Vegas in the first part of December 3rd. The Oilers play Vegas, so I'm going to make a trip down there, and hopefully, I haven't seen an Oiler win in person since last. I guess the first game last season.
Last year, and they won in overtime.
So that's what's coming up for the Oilers. Moving on, and I want to say shout outs to Jamie's watching right now, Thomas, Mona, Roland, who's your cousin Jessica's husband out in South Carolina. He's watching. So thanks everybody for watching. And again, if you don't catch it live, it'll be up and ready here on Facebook in just a little bit. The San Jose Sharks get their first win.
Yeah, they did.
And Winnipeg gets their first loss almost on this. I think it was the same night.
Yeah, I mean, good for Winnipeg's on an insane. Yeah. They're 8-1.
8-1-0. So it's
they're playing really good. So I mean, it's not a concern to lose one game, and they lost to Toronto, which is a good team in itself. So good for San Jose to get a win too. They hopefully can turn it into a little bit of something here.
Yeah, I mean, because everybody wants to see the Sharks because number 1 draft pick.
Yeah, and he hasn't played. He only played the first night, and he's out. So, and even then, like getting a win is big for them. I mean, it can spark a little bit of interest for their fans, and they've been bad for a while now. A few years they've been just at the bottom, so it's nice to see them at least have a little bit of a smidgen of success if they can. Like I said, Winnipeg loses yesterday, finally the last team to lose a game. Even Calgary starting to fold a little bit. They've lost since our game. They've lost 3 times since that night. They lost to Vegas yesterday 5-0.
I think teams that were started hot, starting to cool down a little bit, kind of all, not expected, but I don't see Calgary falling too far, but they are kind of dropping off a little bit. And a couple other things I want to talk about, and the Four Nations tournament tickets.
I'm excited for that.
Went on sale today. It's 7 games, 4 in Montreal, 3 in Boston. With the championship game being in Boston between February 12th and 20th. So the tickets are on sale. It's Canada, the United States, Finland, and Sweden. And there's been talk about who's going to be on what. And now what kind of thing that I thought was really classy is they asked Connor McDavid, who should be the captain? He says, it's no doubt, it's Sid Crosby. Sid's got to be the captain of this. Like he said, there's no conversation about it. Sid's the guy. And it's like,
which is probably going to happen.
It doesn't matter if you're a C or an A on that team.
Yeah,
But
That team's loaded.
it's a load. Sid's going to be the captain. He
Yeah.
should be. Now, do you like the long break
Nope.
instead of the All-Star break?
No, because it's like a week and a half, almost 2 weeks. But I mean, I think this tournament will be more competitive.
Mhm.
I've already expressed my dislike for the All-Star game. I think it's a joke.
Yeah.
They don't try. The fans spend all that money and they go there and the players don't even try or seem to care. I think this puts a bit more of a feel like like you're in the Olympics.
Right.
That you're trying to make pride for your country and win the tournament. And I mean, that's the best of the best that are
and
going
I think
to
they're
that.
doing it the next 2 years.
Yeah, good. But I'm excited to see how it goes. The jerseys are going to be
the jerseys are just unbelievable.
But I'm going to have to scoop one of those up. But yeah, it's going to be a fun tournament. I'm excited to watch.
And then the last thing I have on my list, and if you got something, of course, you can bring it up. But I was just thinking about this today. Who's on the coaching chopping block? And I'm just going to put out 4 teams. Mm-hmm. Sullivan in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tortorella in Philly. Burnett in Nashville. And I'm even going to throw out my guy, Knobloch in Edmonton. But I think the Oilers are coming around. So I don't know if you can put Knobloch on there or not. But I put Knobloch on there. Who's on the hot seat? Sully?
Absolutely. You know what? He's a great coach. But he's been there for 9 years already. There needs to be some change made. I think his message is not received anymore in the locker room. I feel like half the time those guys don't feel inspired by what he says to really try. They know that if any time adversity comes their way, the same messages are going to be repeated, and it doesn't do any justice for them. I think he needs to be I think almost he could be coaching somewhere else. I just don't think he should be there anymore. I'm hoping they do something because if that ownership group cares about the fans' experience, they'll do something about it. Because it's not working. No. It hasn't been working. Even the last couple of years, he says the same thing after every game, the same thing to the media every game. And it's like,
well, let's look at this time last year and a little bit. The Oilers were 2-9-1 and pulled the trigger. Yeah. Penguins are 3-6-1.
Well, you look at even the champions not saying because I've said it as well that we don't have, I don't think, the potential to win. But the teams that have won, how many times in the last recent history has it been a coaching change that sparked all of it? And you're at an early enough point where you can do that and you have plenty of time to reverse it.
Do it now.
I think they take it as if you win a game, then it extends him by another week.
Who would let's say, you be general manager. And if Sully goes, who do you put back there? Do you just put somebody in off the bench or do you bring somebody else in?
I think you bring a fresh face in. I don't know. It'd be cool if you could bring like maybe Bruce Boudreau in there because I like him. I think maybe in Vancouver. I mean, he turned them around a little bit.
Yeah, he turned them around.
I think Woodcroft would be interesting if you could bring him in there. I know there's plenty of people out there. I imagine you could grab, but
I'm sure stuff. Well, I'm
hoping they do because I mean, you don't want to get to the point where you're too far gone and it's going to be too late because as it is a division, the higher teams in the division are already winning a lot of games and we're way behind already. So I think
your Uncle Keith is watching.
Hi, Uncle Keith.
So we like to thank everybody. We got a lot of people joining in tonight. Do you have anything that you want to bring up?
I mean, maybe some I guess injury news. So I don't know if you saw, but Duclair's out for 6 to 8 weeks for the Islanders. He hurt himself last week. Like I said, Rusty's out for a week-to-week basis because he hurt himself he got hurt in Vancouver in a board collision. We'll see what the McDavid update is on that.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens when after
he's
the
back
Nashville
on Sunday.
Game, because he's in Edmonton, and if he can just jump over to Calgary, it depends because it's a back-to-back Sunday, Monday. So we'll see. But yeah, we'll see.
I have a question for you actually. When you talk about coaching changes, what do you do with the goaltending situation in Colorado? What do you think they do with them?
I think, like I said last year, how the Oilers needed to do something with goaltending.
They need to bad.
If Colorado has got the firepower, it's proven. McCarr's on an incredible
point scorer in the
league. They've got the power, but they can't stop the puck. You have to make a goaltending change. You have to find. I don't know what Colorado's resources are. I don't know like how much
money they
have, but definitely they need goaltending help because it ain't happening.
They were thinking when they got him, Georgiev, because he was a backup.
Yeah.
He was a backup with the Rangers. He wasn't even a starter. He was a backup.
You've got so many goaltenders out there who are on lower level teams. Jarry. Like maybe okay, Tristan Jarry. Maybe
might be a good reset for him.
Maybe something a good reset for him. But definitely, yeah, Colorado needs to do something with their goaltending situation, or else they're not going to get past Winnipeg. They're not going to get past Dallas.
No,
they're not going to get. They may not.
They'll get out. They'll get out goalied by those.
Yeah, they'll get out goalied by those.
They can outscore them, but
they can't. They can't. So, yeah, I really think
interesting.
Georgiev is because I never saw this coming out of Colorado.
He's at like a 5.5 GA.
Yeah, so
that's ridiculous.
His save percentage has got to be
it's like 85%.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
No, you got to do something. So, I know you're off to get some bowling done here tonight.
Yeah.
But we really want to thank you for joining us. We have a very special in studio guest as well with us. We won't mention who, but somebody is. We have our first studio guest of the year. We won't mention who because she just did this to me. But we want to thank everybody for joining us live here on the Best Boy Center Ice podcast. It's going to be up the video will be up here on Facebook in just a little bit. I want to thank ADIM Refocused Radio Network and Shemaya Reed for having us on the network.
Yep.
Shout out to Rudy Campos Jr. and Sweep the League. You can get us on Spreaker, on our YouTube channel, the Best Boys Center Ice Podcast. On Spreaker, it's the Best Boys Center Ice Podcast if you need to find it. And also on our TikToks, the TikTok world, we both we will do a recap of our team's games. So you'll do one for tonight for the Minnesota game.
Better be a good one.
It better be a good one. And we're here every Tuesday night around 5:45 Central Time. Tuesday night. That's how you say it properly. It's not Tuesday. It's Tuesday. And we will be back with you again on Tuesday. We love to hear from you. Comments. Who's your favorite team? How's your favorite team doing? What do you think your team needs to do if they're doing well or if they're not doing so well, like the Colorado Avalanche? Who's your old boss? That's
Michael. Michael. He's been already texting me all about
Georgiev.
I'm like, I know.
I know. What do you think your favorite team needs to do as we're getting close to the 10-game mark of the NHL's regular season? We're going to wrap things up for today, and I hope everybody has a great rest of the day. And in the meantime, and in between time, everybody have a great hockey night.
Meantime and in between time.
See what he does? See what he does every time.
He makes me